example, downtown areas?
Well, yeah, but you're talking about
Perhaps
two different
supplemented.
types of police work.
Oh, I see.
You're talking in terms of responsiveness to a call for service, and you're also talking in terms of speaking in terms of prevention and community stability. You see, the beat man is great for this. 3 blocks away, his only means of getting there is his feet and by running, even if he were told. There's a squad car, you see, he can respond.
Yeah, I'm aware of that, but
There's a need for both, not just one. As far as a value in a community is concerned, there's no question in my mind, overall value, other than responding, the beat man is far more valuable, far more expensive, but still far more valuable than the squad. And this is our difficulty, you see, when you don't have the men, you can't assign beat men.
yeah, I'm aware of that. Yeah, it takes quite a few more men to cover in territory.
Yeah. But what we have done in this area, not so much in this area, but further over into the Franklin Avenue area, we have put out what we call street men, who do nothing but serve the community through the leaders of the community, even on non-police complaints, as well as complaints for or against the police, or complaints of, let's say, sanitation, poor housing, landlord won't fix a house. For these officers, we have no jurisdiction over that matter, but these officers will then take the complaint to the agency, which does have jurisdiction, and then it's brought to his attention along with other people's attention, so there's a control on it, and to see that something is done. But he doesn't control in the sense of patrolling the bars, and he just meets with him in the Indian community. You perhaps meet with in the black community at Sabathani, and over the north side with the D-Hole, what he headquarters out of. By he, I mean Officer D. Cassini, Officer Cheetah, and Officer Marty Gross. These are the 3 officers.
There's a recent news. Was this in Minneapolis where the 2 members of was a tactical squad were suspended for 2 weeks upon investigation or something? Well, what was involved here now is what this tactical squad, I mean, who's on it and how are they selected?
Well, first of all, it was a mistreatment of a prisoner, pure and simple. And they received 14 days off for permitting their prisoner to be mistreated. Now that does not preclude during the investigation that they may be involved in the mistreatment. So that does not preclude further punishment. But there were conflicting statements. For instance, the young lady up there first told us that Officer so-and-so now did participate. And then another independent party went up to get a statement, and she said, no, Officer so-and-so did not participate. So there we are. First of all, we had a good witness. Now we don't have a witness at all. So we're kind of waiting for her to make up her mind, because feeling that the officers are going to protect one another, naturally, and feeling that the other people on the other side are involved will tell the story the way they want it told, you hope to get the true picture. And this young lady was one of the people whom we thought would give us this picture. Now she's given us 2 different statements. So we don't know where we stand. But I think other officers will be suspended and there will be transfers. Now, as for the TAC squad, there are 40 officers assigned to the tactical unit. And they work from the hours from 8 o'clock until 4 in the morning. Because our computer shows this is when our 65% of our crime is being committed. Half the squad may go over on the east side to deal with a problem. Another half may come over here to deal with a problem, street crimes and what have you.
Now, are these full-fledged policemen?
Oh yeah, they're usually a younger officer between the ages of 20 to 25, 26.
In other words, they're not in any certain precinct.
No, see, they have the luxury of being dispatched to where the problem may be. And also, they are trained in crowd confrontation and control. And this training not only applies to the use of the stick and the gas and what have you, but also how to keep your cool and how to maintain your position in a line and don't act as an individual. You act only at the direction of the sergeant, and you do only what the sergeant tells you to do. And before, what we would do is call, when we had the things in Plymouth, we had a mob on one side, and then we called up all our officers and what we had, and they weren't trained and they were not assigned to squads, so what we had up there were two mobs, really. A mob being a group of people without leadership and under control of no one. And the officers were indecisive, they didn't know the report, they didn't know what to do, and as a result there was some burning. And there were some individual acts of police officers. And this is what we want to get rid of. So if a man does do something which is illegal, we pinpoint him as the one who did it, and we pinpoint his sergeant as the one who permitted him to do it. There's no buck passing.
Now, on the tactical squad, are they called out for things like a chase or a robbery or something like this, or is this handled within among the officers in the precinct?
Well, ordinarily they're handled by the officers in the precinct. If another squad is close by, they'll respond. And to be perfectly candid with you, there is some antagonism between the two, because the precinct officer figures he's sticking his nose into my business. Then he leaves me with a can of corn after he opens it. And if you're going to do something to get somebody mad at everybody, then stick around and let them get mad at you rather than me. I have to be here on a day-to-day basis.
If it's a shooting or something like that, the tactical squad is called in.
Well, sometimes, again, they respond, and sometimes they aren't needed. Now, a shooting, of course, depends on when the shooting took place. If the shooting's in progress, of course, any squad in the area will come in. But if somebody calls, reports that I've been robbed and somebody was shot and the men have escaped, we get a description, and the cars will stay in the periphery, hoping to pick up the getaway cars it leaves. This is not always the way it happens, but this is what we hope they do. And then one car will respond, along with the detectives, who are from our homicide division or from the robbery division. But the hardest thing to do is to keep the cars out of the immediate area and to stay on a peripheral basis, so obviously the man is gone. He's not there, so it's kind of silly to everybody to congregate there. But policemen are like you. When you see a siren, you like to go over and look and see what's going on.
Is there any law against this?
Oh no. Law against what? No.
Well,
There are rules.
Say, for instance, I have a radio which has a police.
Oh, I see. A law against you going there. No, you can go any place you wish.
As long as I stay out of the way.
That's right. There's no law that says you restricted anything, unless the police have said this area is restricted because the evidence is being gathered.
Are there some states or some cities that restrict use of police band radios in passenger cars?
I don't know. Our restrictions, we have restrictions in that you must have a license.
To have the radio in the car?
Mm-hmm. And you get this license from the chief of police. Permit.
What if you have say you've got a portable radio with a police band on it? Can't you put that in your car?
You're not to have it on the police band.
Who's to know that I have it on the police band and not on the FM that's in the car?
Well, it's a difficult of proof. It becomes a matter of proof.
Is it that you can't transmit, or both listen and transmit?
You can't, I don't know if you can transmit. I don't know if the law applies to transmission. But you can't intercept. You can have these little taggers, these little attachments. You can have those any place you want, as long as they're not in your car. You can have them in your car, but you can't have them tuned to the police band. Now, this is my interpretation of it.
Because every once in a while, I'm a guard on the control data instruction site in Bloomington, and fellow that comes on and relieves me later at night. He's got a police band. He's got a portable radio, and it's got AM, FM aircraft and police band on it. So every once in a while, around midnight or something, I'll turn the thing on and listen to the police calls. And if I hear something that's on my way home, for instance, there was a shooting report, I think it was about a week ago, on 46th and Minneapolis, and so I was on my way home. I was ready to leave, and so I got in the car and I just went on down that way. And when I got there, there was 3 squads there, and I knew one of the fellows that was there because he lives out in the Minneapolis precinct. I know several guys there. He said it was just some guys shooting off firecrackers. But
that's what most of these shootings are.
yeah, I just wanted to see if there was any law against.
There's law against having them in your car, but to be perfectly honest with you, I haven't read the law that carefully. But this is usually for the burglar, because they used to monitor our calls. And now we have another channel, of course, which you can't get on those. And we use this other channel, so this takes care of the monitoring to a large extent. But on the other hand, anything you can create, they can create a counter to it.
You mentioned having the idea of having just 2 mobs in a situation like that. Who is to determine how much abuse a police officer or a group of police officers is to take from a mob? Something like a convention in Chicago in '68.
Well, I wasn't at the convention in Chicago, so I can only speak from what I read, and I read both sides. I read one side where the police were extremely bad, and then I read another side where the police were extremely good. What they found there, that the lack of supervision was responsible for some of the actions. However, speaking for myself, if somebody ever come up to me and I was in a line and somebody threw crap on me or something, I'm going to hit him back. I just know it. And that probably wouldn't be right for me to say as a deputy chief or anything, but I know what I would do.
Well, who would, that's what I was wondering, is how much abuse a police officer is supposed to have.
Well, physically, oral abuse, name calling, what have you, shouldn't affect you. Shouldn't affect you one bit. But when someone physically abuses you, then you can respond in kind to make arrest. You just can't hit him and leave him there. Nor can you hit him if you can arrest him without hitting him. Don't forget, you're not dealing with some omnipotent person when you deal with a policeman. I'm a policeman. I'm no different than you. If I were to put my finger in there and pull it out, I wouldn't leave a hole, believe me. So what I'm saying is, you're dealing with a person that cries when he's sad, bleeds when he's cut, worries when he's broke. And he has certain cultural beliefs. He believes in certain things. And when he's dealing with someone else whom he sees as a threat to what he believes in, it's pretty hard to isolate himself as an individual and as a policeman. It's very difficult, and the danger is in him responding. We all want to respond to a great many things. But when you wear that badge, you can't afford that luxury of subjective responding. You've got to stand there and take a great many things. You've got to perhaps see a flag going up. And if it isn't against the law, or down, you've got to stand there and take it.
Yeah, I was wondering because I did a research paper a few years ago on the convention down there, and one person I had talked to as an interview was a deputy assistant to the then Mayor of Minneapolis, Mr.
Eitenberg?
Richner?
Oh, no, it must be a different one. I thought Gene Eitenberg was his assistant for some time.
But he had said that he expected the police to act as professional men, and apparently, from when I put it to him bluntly, he had expected the police force to take all this abuse in Chicago, and I had disagreed with him at the time because I knew that if I was a policeman, I wouldn't think of
Well, you know, it's awful easy for people to sit in a carpeted office
it. Yeah.
and hide behind political or social philosophies and second guess anyone. It's another thing to be out there. And mostly, I've always asked these people, I said, what's your definition of a professional man? You say a policeman should be professional. Should he be professional like some of the politicians who are indicted for getting graft? Or should he be professional like a lawyer who attempts to bribe or coerce a witness into saying something that's not right? What I'm saying is that just because you're a professional person by Webster's definition doesn't make you an honorable person. And like I say, it's extremely easy to stand someplace and say what you're going to do. And it's another thing to be out there. So I would never second guess a Chicago police officer because I wasn't there.
How prudent do you think it is, for example, in handling a mob, to have these people, you know, the policemen on the front line carrying handguns or carrying shotguns or whatever for riot control?
Well, you know, in Chicago, not one gun was drawn. Go back to a situation. There wasn't one case of an officer drawing a sidearm. In our cases, we do not draw our sidearms. The only time you draw that sidearm, unless the guy's pointing one at you or your commanding officer tells you to. And we have what we call anti-sniper teams. More euphemistic ways of saying it, but they are anti-sniper teams. And their job is only to do one thing: to get that man out of the building. Now, short of killing him. But if they have to, they have to. But they are the only ones permitted to fire at a sniper. In other words, you're not going to get a bunch of policemen shooting with their handguns. The shotguns are only used on the periphery. They're never in front. At least they shouldn't be. And they are there only merely, again, to protect the lives and property of everyone there. And the very factor there is a very, very deterrent to anyone who would think about doing something just merely to be a martyr. They like to be martyrs, but they don't like to be dead martyrs.
And they for example, say there was a riot or a mob that seemed to be out of control. They wouldn't walk into there carrying riot guns, for example, or anything like that.
No.
Because, well,
these men carry your and there again, you see, you don't know what type of crowd. Now, if you get a crowd of people who are milling about, in this crowd there are probably 8 or 9 people well versed in mob psychology. They want the police to do something to make them another, like I say, a Joan of Arc, so to speak.
That's right.
But a live one, though.
That's right.
So then the crowd, which is usually neutral, especially a younger crowd, will then choose sides. Then you've got a riot. Up until then, you've just got maybe 4 or 5 loudmouths. If you permit them to talk, they become, boringly redundant, as we say. And pretty soon, nobody's listening to them. Their biggest thing is to get someone to do something.
I was reading a Time magazine about some officers in some high crime area where there's been a lot of police killings that they wish that they were allowed to carry, for instance, like sawed-off double-barreled shotgun or something like that, just for the psychological advantage that gives them over a mob. Someone seeing that. I wonder if there's any kind of a request or anything like that by officers.
No, that wouldn't stop it either, because most of the shootings and killing of policemen have been done very quickly, and when the officer's been unaware of what's going to happen.
No, but I mean, they didn't need it so much as a self-defense weapon, but as a psychological thing. That, you know, it's quite a thing to look at. You know.
No, I wouldn't recommend it, and we don't have it for one reason. First of all, if you're not prepared to use that gun, don't ever put it in your hand. Just as simple as that. Don't use it as a bluff, because you bluff once, and you're through. Now, if you point that thing at somebody, you better damn well be prepared to use it. And then if they weren't going to use it, and you've got this thing in your hand, your hands are taken up with this, you either have to put it down or hand it to somebody, and then you've got guns laying all around. No, this is not good.
And I was wondering now also, there's been a lot of research done on weapons other than the bullet things for riot control. I was wondering if the Minneapolis Police Department's got anything like that, like they got that shoot wood slugs or something like
Well,
that.
we've explored this, and they're also explored. See, a lot of these things are gimmicks, like everything else. Anytime there's a need, a great many gadgets come onto the market, and they try to sell them to you. By they, I mean the vendors. And this wax bullet thing isn't a bad idea, in that let's say if a guy's going to throw a firebomb, you don't want to kill him, but he hits something, then you hit him with that. You identify him. There's a piece of wax on his shoulder. You can get him later, and that's of course short of a deadly force. But there are wooden pellets which sting. I think Los Angeles has them. We don't have them.
I mean, it's something like when you're pursuing someone and you fire the warning shot and he doesn't stop. So instead of shooting and killing him, something will knock him down or something. So
that would be ideal if someone could come up with it.
Isn't there a tranquilizer gun?
Anything that would be anything. Nobody wants to shoot anybody.
Yeah.
At least anybody I knew. No. And if he wants to shoot somebody, I'll tell you, I'd worry about this guy.
So I was wondering, it's something that the police might also want too, to have a weapon.
Yeah, we love one, but all the ones that you see are kind of like automobiles. They look nice, chrome and white walls and everything, but when you field test them, they turn out to be very impractical.
Has there been a change in the weapons that police officers carry?
No, 38 caliber, Smith & Wesson or Colt revolver.
I heard some places had gone either to a...
with a conventional load.
Yeah, some places have gone to either a 357 Magnum or a 9 millimeter.
We're exploring it. Well, most of them carry 357 Magnum revolvers merely because the frame is good and you can do a lot of shooting at range and they don't loosen up. But our loads now are the conventional 38 special. Some use I can't think of the term, the name of it. But anyhow, they splatter on impact. And the rationale for using those was that when it hit a building or something, it wouldn't ricochet. But on the other hand, if it hits a bone, it just tears the flesh right out.
Yeah, that's what I think was the Indiana State.
Yeah, I can't think of the name of it, but
Dum-dum.
no, that's what it amounts to, a dum-dum.
Yeah.
And we rejected those. We made our officers take them out of their guns.
Their highway patrol had gone to a 9 millimeter because they got the impact of the 38 without having the slower slug and not doing as much damage to something. Like if they did hit a person, they wouldn't necessarily have to kill him by hitting him something like a 38 with a lead slug. You don't have to hit him in a very vital area to kill him because it splatters so much and does so much damage to the person.
Well, the special 38 caliber load really isn't that potent. Men have been hit 4 and 5 times with those, and have lived. They're a very, very slow velocity cartridge. Your worst weapon, surprisingly enough, that people don't realize when they talk about rifles what was that, M15s or something? There was a controversy.
M16.
Yeah, whatever they were. Your regular slug fired from a shotgun. They have more impact than any of them, and they will go through the trunk of a car, through both seats, into the motor, and into the motor. And if you were in a window, I could cut that window right out of a brick window with those things.
Yeah, the rifle slug.
The regular slug fired from a shotgun. You'd have the impression that they would mesh up, but they don't.
I had a friend that dropped a shotgun out of a tree and it didn't go all the way through.
But policemen very seldom use their weapon. This is the thing. We have a shooting board now. Every time that officer fires his weapon, he must appear before the inquiry board. And at first, before we had the board, there was some indiscriminate shooting, in the air or something like this. But it's surprising, as soon as they have to explain the use of this weapon, it's cut off practically to nothing.
In other words, they don't fire a warning shot into the air or anything like that anymore.
You are not to fire a warning shot. You are not to fire any shot. You're not even supposed to take your gun out of the holster unless, of course, you approach a dangerous car. That's the difference. But I mean when you're involved in a misdemeanor. Because you're not justified in using it, period. And people have gotten days off for doing it. Firing a warning shot in the case of a misdemeanor. You just can't do it. It must be a felony.
Have the beat patrolmen, for example, ever considered not carrying a handgun? They do that quite often back home.
No, not in this city. See, there's an old saying, you know, you always refer back to London, in England. And by the way, the English Police Federation now is beginning to lobby for the use and carrying of guns. We've lost so many officers, but there's been an old saying that if the officer from England were to be transported to the United States, and the officer from the United States transported to England, within 24 hours, all the London bobbies would be kidnapped, and all the police in London would be in jail for violation of the law. So you have two completely different cultures and laws as it relates to police procedure. I'd never send an officer out without his weapon because, for one thing, it's just it'd be beautiful if you could. Don't get me wrong. If things were such that you could have a moratorium that the white hats would say, "I won't carry my guns if the black hats don't carry theirs," sort of thing. But unfortunately, this is not the way life is.
Well, a good percentage of the Mounties don't carry their guns. They'll carry a flashlight in their holster.
Well, I don't carry a gun unless I'm going out someplace. I wouldn't carry a gun over here, for instance.
Yeah, even
That's
for
silly.
example on a beat. In fact, I've seen many people arrested by a Mountie who didn't have a weapon in evidence except for perhaps a nightstick.
Well, that's excellent if it can be done.
Yeah, perhaps. I don't know how. Perhaps it just isn't feasible. I don't know.
Oh, not. No, we've had. I think we've had 30 some officers killed within the last year. Not here. But I mean, just not in the line of duty, but I mean, just given a tag or something, and someone come up and shoot them.
Yeah, no, in this connection, I was kind of wondering, you know, where they're just out and out murders of policemen. If this thing begins to accelerate, you know, the war that's been declared on policemen, what sort of defense mechanisms are they going to use?
You have none. You take your chances. Two officers together, that's about all you can do. There's been cases when both officers have been shot. But let's face it, what can you do? There's nothing you can do.
I've read about things where they're talking about, you know, the draft, you know, guys into the service and stuff. Well, they're talking about because men don't want to be policemen anymore. There have been some talk about drafting them into being, you know, policemen. Is that feasible?
I would hope not.
I would too.
I would sure hope not.
That would kind of screw up the lottery system.
Yeah. Well, we don't want it.
Screw up the police force.
Yeah.
I'm of the impression that police force or policemen should be very dedicated.
Well, you know, we talk about this when you talk about the police and everything. You got to first, you know, I always like to define what you're talking about. What is a policeman?
Well,
I mean, is he a minister? Is he a doctor? Is he a lawyer at times? Is he a family counselor? Is he a sadist? Is he a racist? Is he an oppressor? Just what is he?
Being.
That's right. That's exactly right. And
he
he's
can be
some of
any one of
those,
those.
some of those, all of those, or none of those. And the same way with a student. We tell our officers, they say, no, you get mad when a student comes up to you and says, hey, pig, or not so much a student, but anybody. Because you're wearing a uniform. And I said, now, is it any difference for you to say, look at that kooky guy with the long hair, without even knowing the guy, but you've already put him in a bag, just like he put you in a bag. Now, there's no much more fair than for he to judge you as you to judge him, when you don't even know one another. But this is what's happening, see.
In my hometown, there's signs, bumper stickers going around now. If you don't like police, next time you need help, call a hippie.
Yeah, let me tell you.
Do you think that would help the situation at all?
Well, I'll tell you, there was a couple put on our squad cars and they were taken off in a hurry when we found out they were on there.
I can see the possibility of that statement being somewhat realistic. But
It is, but it's a trite statement.
Yeah, and it's meaningless. Plus the fact that
It-
probably makes people more antagonistic towards it.
Well, it isn't. It's a statement which I suppose would be probably the same as a trite statement. You know, would you want your daughter to marry a colored guy? you know, when you're arguing about the races. They're both trite. There's nothing. There's no substance to either statement. And the same thing about if you don't like police, call a hippie. Well, that's well, a bunch of crap.
Is it true that the crime rate has gone down in the Cedar-Riverside area, or is it
Yeah.
up? Or?
Yeah, I can. Actually, there's very little crime in this area. I brought the computer statistics along, which are by census tract. And the crime is not here. The crime is in a 4 square mile area, which is commonly known now as the Model City area, from Franklin to 36th, from Lindale to Minneapolis. 25% of our total crime in Minneapolis is committed in that 4 square miles.
Well, what about like Northeast or Plymouth or something like that?
Northeast is virtually nil of it.
Really?
Yeah, and Plymouth Avenue, when you compare the number of street crimes on Plymouth Avenue, they compare very favorably with other places, and you have more street crime in some of your so-called better neighborhoods than you do there. So if I were to be able, I would say that my wife would be safer on Plymouth Avenue walking there between the hours of 8 and midnight than she would over by Lake Calhoun.
How are do you know how relations are between the residents of this particular area and the policemen around here? I'm fairly new to this area, and I just wonder.
Well, it's hard. First you have to, you know, like people say, the community, and I always challenge someone to define the community, because the community is not the students, it's not the old people, it's an aggregate of everybody.
That's right. Yeah.
So you get people who say you're too soft on those damn students, you got to give them a club in the head, and you get other people say you're too hard in the same community.
Uh-huh.
And this goes for the black community and the Indian community as well. The black community gets very mad. Matter of fact, when I go there, they don't like to be called the black community. And somebody will say, look, I am a colored man. I am not a black man, and I don't want somebody to hang a tag on me. And the so-called leaders do not speak for me. So I don't think there's a community in the city where you've got a consensus opinion that the police are either good or that the police are either bad.
Oh, I see.
When you talk about the Cedar-Riverside area and there's hardly any crime in this area, it's,
Now you're speaking.
now you're not talking about. I mean, I think one of the biggest things in the whole Cedar-Riverside area is the drugs going through here. Now, it's, is this what would you put this under crime?
Well, yes, but
If it is,
I
would you say
differentiate.
this is the biggest thing in this area?
well, no question
As far
about
as
it.
busts and so forth.
But I'm talking about crimes where a victim makes an offense report. See, the only time we know a crime has happened is when someone says, I've been robbed, raped, or burglarized. Now, obviously, a guy using drugs isn't going to come up to us and say, I'm a drug user. The only statistics you have there is when you make an apprehension. And these are not included in the major crimes listed, sent to the FBI.
It's another thing you mentioned, the FBI. Does the Minneapolis Police Department work in close contact with the FBI quite often?
Then again, I'll speak for myself. The FBI is a very well organized and administered federal police agency. But they would be absolutely hopeless and helpless without local jurisdictions. We work a great deal more with them than they work with us. And I have reservations about FBI men going on campuses. I have reservations about wiretapping, which apparently they champion. Not so much the people you catch, but what can happen. We want our jurisdiction. We think we can do it.
To what would you credit that Minnesota, the campuses have been, relatively peaceful compared to other?
There again, you go back to the same thing I talked about before, and it's kind of a behavioral thing, which is kind of a manifestation of an individual's, if I may use some sociological terms, of his cultural patterns. I think it's simple as that. I think that Minnesota in this area has been traditionally conservative, and families have been conservative, and children's have been conservative. And I know I can get an argument, I suppose, but nevertheless, I think this reflects on the attitudes. And besides this, most kids that are going to school here live in Minnesota. They live in the area. Whereas at Dartmouth or some other university, perhaps, they come from all over the country. And maybe they just think a little differently. Or at least they're probably a little more intelligent to do their own thinking rather than have somebody else do the thinking for them. And this, I think, is what I hope would be the reasons. But I don't know. I got 2 kids going to University of Minnesota. And God knows what they'll come up with, as they go along. I don't know.
How do you, a lot of police I've heard about helping out sometimes with a profit motive, the prostitution in the city. Going along with it, and they will either get, free service from the prostitute or money,
I can speak. I had the Morals and Narcotics Squad for 2.5 years. And I can speak on that subject. First of all, an old guy a long time ago who was a head of the Moral Squad, and who I imagine from time to time did take some gratuities, but he says, never take it from a whore. You can't trust them. They talk too much. But really, no, you don't. There's none of this. In other cities, you have it.
No,
but our problem is not that big here. It's isolated to 3-4 square blocks. And now with the advent of the pill, the professional prostitute is going broke. But you see, in any cities where you have mafia, these are controlled, yes.
Is the mafia strong in Minneapolis?
It isn't in Minneapolis. For some reason, and it hasn't been, not because of me or anyone else, it just hasn't been here. It has never...
Because now I've heard reports that Minneapolis is a very good hideout for them.
No. Oh, it could be.
Maybe a hideout they don't use.
A hideout could be, you're not going to know a mafia man when you see him.
That's right.
And the chances are that I won't know. Now, we have heard that they have been putting money in surrounding projects, big industrial complexes. And the FBI has been trying to run this down, but how do you find out? But as far as getting a foothold in political government, I can speak for this mayor, I can speak for Mr. Mayor Naflin, and I can speak for the mayor before him. And I know categorically that they've never had any influence in this city, or in St. Paul, or in this area. For some reason, they just don't feel it's fertile. Perhaps if we had gambling, or perhaps if we had horse racing, then there might be a different story.
So
There is a professional crime ring though in Minneapolis, isn't there?
No, what professional crime rings are, if you want to call them that, there may be a well-organized burglary ring, and they'll operate. But their operation usually is restricted right to the area. I know I was fortunate enough to break one up by getting the ringleader. But there again, it was the Collins gang, as we call it. And you policemen know who these people are. It's just a matter of getting the proof. And there's no gambling. Actually, gambling is, there's bookmaking here and there, and there's a little jackpots. But nothing organized. They're independent bookmakers, and they're arrested from time to time, and a $100 fine, and they're right back in business. I mean, this is the top fine, and it's a small price to pay to be a bookmaker. But there again, we have an incongruous situation. If you were to have a jackpot number, I'd have to arrest you.
My brother.
Yet your wife could be spending all your dough on bingo.
That's right.
And
That's
be
perfectly
basically free of any punishment,
That's
see.
right.
My
And this
brother Barber's downtown explains that, or he puts this explanation to why gambling isn't big in Minnesota. The local stocks are too good.
That's right. I've got local stocks.
That's his bag too.
Yeah, and that is a gamble. And then sometimes you win and sometimes you lose.
How much are these no-knock warrants used in Minneapolis? Is there much?
Oh, I don't think perhaps we've used it once or twice, but a no-knock warrant, you know, to get a search warrant, first of all, is not the easiest thing in the world. First of all, you must prepare an affidavit. So you have an application for a search warrant, then you have the search warrant itself, but the crux of the entire thing is the application. I mean the affidavit. And you must swear to these certain things. As certain types of evidence. You just can't say a TV will be in there that we suspect has been stolen. You're not going to get a search warrant. You must be able to establish that there are drugs or gambling paraphernalia or contraband in this place. You must describe it. You must tell how you know it's in there. Then that's how you get it. Yes. Now that's just the warrant itself. Then if you wish to go in at night, then you must explain in there why you must go in at night. And then if you want a no-knock, then you must explain why you wish to no-knock. And then the judge looks at this, and if he feels you have justification, then he'll sign it. Then I've been on narcotic raids, and if you're not in there quick, that stuff's down the toilet. But more important, and we've never had this trouble here, someone may get to a weapon. But there again, we haven't had the trouble. I know of no, but the no-knock, you see, the knock was this. We would have one guy with his foot up, braced up right in that door, and I'd knock, and he'd hit. So you see what you're doing before the no-knock, you were conforming with the law on a technical basis. And there'd be 3 or 4 guys running in. Right, so rap, bang, and you're in. And now they just say you don't have to do the rapping, but you just can't get a search warrant, believe me.
Now that we're on the topic of search warrants, I'd like to ask you something about this. Augsburg College has got a rule, which is written up in their rules and regulations. There shall be no alcohol in the houses, in the college housing. And this applies to even students who are 21 years of age or older. Now, there's been a rumor that they're going to start checking the houses. They're going to crack down on this to see if there is alcohol in the houses. Now, wouldn't we necessarily have to let the person in if they came to the door and wanted to come in?
Well,
or is it against the law? Is it for them to enter the house?
I suppose
Without-
they're
college
thinking they
owns the
own
house.
it. They own the house.
They own the house, but we're renting the house from them.
well, here's what the law says, the 4th Amendment, search and seizure. All persons shall be secure in their homes and their persons from unreasonable searches or seizures.
But can it be left up to an administration?
Now,
of
number
Augsburg?
2. Now, number 2. This applies only to a law officer. Now, if you, and this is the Supreme Court decision has come down, where if you made a citizen's arrest and you search this man and you presented evidence as a citizen, the rule that this is not an unreasonable search because you are not a person of authority.
But can that
So now I go back-
evidence be admitted in the court?
Well,
system?
they apparently, then if they were going to suspend you, let's say they were just going to take it, and then if they were going to suspend you, you may have a very good defense against suspension at a hearing, in that they did invade your privacy without your permission.
In other words, then they are allowed to come into the houses and check, even without us letting them in. Can't we say, can't we tell them to, if they want to enter this house, to?
Well, do you sign something which just says that you shall abide by all rules of the college, and you shall not do this or do this?
I think
So you may waive certain privileges.
Well, does this mean then that
It's a hard question because of a great many things. But if you rented a home outside of here, and this was a house, just a regular house, and you paid your rent, then nobody, in my estimation, could come in there without your permission.
See, these
Yeah, I was
houses
wondering
are
because-
maintained as dorms.
Well, then that's a different story.
I was wondering, because it sounded like what you were saying is that you couldn't go in because you're a person of authority. Now you can't go in and search this without.
I tried. I couldn't.
Yeah, if you tried, you couldn't. But since I'm not a person of authority, I could.
Yeah, because you're not going to place him under arrest. You aren't
He
going
made
to.
a citizen's
As a
arrest,
citizen-
so
as a citizen.
Yeah.
and that was admitted in the court testimony. He could, or that was the reason for arrest. He could be sued for false arrest, then, couldn't he? Or,
No, the only way you can be sued for false arrest if it's done maliciously.
I mean, a citizen's arrest isn't that quite easy to get sued for?
No.
False arrest?
See, you have the same arrest powers I do. I have no more than you, except under certain circumstances, which if I
Well, the
have,
advantage is
if I have
that you
reasonable
won't know
belief that a
first.
felony's been committed, or someone, if you tell me that somebody's committing a felony, and I run up the block and I see a guy running, I can arrest him at night or something because acting on your information. But any other circumstance, a set of circumstances, you have the same powers I do, and you must answer for it.
Yeah, but you do have the advantage in that you know your arrest power is better than the average citizen does.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, that advantage you have.
Yeah.
A private citizen could make an arrest that was not proper. If it was thrown out of court, couldn't he be sued? for
No.
it? He
No.
couldn't?
Not unless they could prove that he did it for a personal reason, maliciously to injure the party. But at the time, see, everything resorts back to one thing. The judge, eliminate all the legalese language, and all the judge is asking you, as a prudent and responsible person, were your actions such that you, at that time, sincerely felt this man was committing a crime? That's all.
If you had a warrant for a dormitory or something, and you came in and you got into a guy's room, and you know there's like two guys living in a room, and one of them has some grass or something, who's put under arrest? Both of them or one of them? Like say, let's say that one does use it, and the other one does not. But they both live in the same room. If it's in that room, are both of them subject to arrest?
The chances are you'd both be arrested. The chances are neither would be charged.
Neither would?
Well, you have possession. Whose possession is it?
Yeah. But let's say it's in one of the guy's drawers.
Drawers? Well, then he would be the one held accountable. But there again, whether he's charged or not, we used to do this in a lot of raids. You'd find a lot of stuff around, but you find out there's 10 people living in that house.
Kind of a bummer.
And obviously nobody's going to say it's his stuff.
Yeah.
But if you say go into a dorm, you just couldn't go into a dorm either. You'd have to specify exactly which room you're going into.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
No, we've heard that if you... I live in Mortensen Hall. I've heard that if you have a search warrant for Mortensen Hall, that's...
You
all
couldn't
have
get
to
one.
have.
You couldn't get
Oh,
one.
I see.
You couldn't get one.
It'd have to be a specified room, and maybe even the specified person in that room?
Well, you'd have to specify, yes, the occupants or the occupants, commonly known as John Jones and Mary Smith or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
a confidential informant, and you have to explain why. But you couldn't say that I'm going to search a dorm. You can't even say that you're going to search a house.
Now, how would a John
You have
Doe
to say
warrant,
it shall be here or there,
I see.
within reason.
It
Yeah.
has to be a certain room in that house?
No, but you must say that he has in a certain place. But let's say that it's a duplex,
Yeah, you have to.
or let's say it's on the
specify
front
which-
steps in this house, and you find it under the steps. You can't arrest them. You can arrest him, but you'll never get him charged.
At Jackson State, after the shootings, they went through the dormitory. They went through the whole dormitory and got all the switchblades and zip guns and everything like that. How could they do that if did they have reason to believe there was a felony committed? How are they able to do that?
By they, who do you mean now?
Well, after the sniper fire at Jackson State, they went through the whole dormitory, and searched the weapons, and they got a big pile of weapons. How are they able to do this if you just can't go searching the dormitory?
Well, there was like I say, I wasn't down there again, so I don't know what all the circumstances are. But there again, you're on. You see, getting evidence is one thing. Getting it into court's another thing. Now they may, as they say, toss the place just to get the weapons. And if you don't introduce it as evidence, there's going to be no contesting of the evidence. You see, in Minnesota, what we have here, if I were to arrest you with evidence, or on your confession charge you. They have what they call a Rasmussen hearing. That is a pretrial hearing in which the judge determines at that time whether the evidence to be introduced by the state is legal, whether the confession is legal, whether the other evidence was seized. And if he says yes, then your trial proceeds. If he says no, the trial can proceed, but without the evidence.
Well,
Which was a good ruling, by the way. It expedites a lot of cases.
the guns and knives that were confiscated, they just disposed of.
I would imagine so. Because,
Time auction off firearms like that?
well, no, what we get is an order to destroy. A judge will give you an order to destroy all contraband, maybe once, twice a year. And everything held in the property room then is taken out and by witnesses destroyed and crushed or burned, whatever the case may be.
It isn't something like that.
You couldn't sell it, no. We don't.
It isn't something like weapons confiscated by a game warden or something.
No.
They auction them off
No.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Even if they had to confiscate my rifle, they would tell me which number they were auctioning it under so I could buy it back.
You see, if you can get certain things back, if a firearm was seized from your room, you can get what they call a writ of replevin. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's the name of it. Where you want to show cause why you shouldn't have this property returned to you. Then the state must show why you shouldn't have it back.
What's the deal on licensing firearms or carrying firearms or getting a permit for firearms in your own?
Well, first of all, the only permit you need is if you want to carry a handgun on your person in public or put it in your car within your reach.
Even if it is open, it's not concealed. So.
No, the concealment law is a tough law to enforce. But if it's in your glove compartment, if you have a gun in your car without a permit, it must be in a locked container described by law in your trunk. And the cartridges must also be in a locked container, independent of that one that carries the gun.
There is now a lunch wrap-in with Minneapolis Deputy Police Chief
So you see,
Eugene Wilson in the FDR. Bring your lunch tray and ask questions. Thank you.
But if you wish a permit, you go through, then you go to the city clerk and one thing and another, and there's a procedure you follow, and you have to have a reason. Now, you don't need a permit to buy a gun.
No, I was wondering, you say a locked compartment. What about the hunter? Like I go hunting, I put my shotgun in the trunk in a case.
Now that's a different. Now you're talking about a long gun. You're not talking about a short gun. Yeah.
I see. Can you have them registered and get a permit for it? Will they run them through a ballistics test, like for your own protection, in case somebody steals it and uses it and call it in?
You can get them registered, yes. Down at our, then I think anyone who wants a gun, has one in their home, should have it registered. Merely go down and register your name and the serial number. And then if we locate a great many stolen guns that we don't know who to return them to. Simply because we don't, TVs, everything. Everybody should have the serial numbers.
And any type of gun be registered?
Sure.
On something like a handgun or a rifle, do they run a ballistics test on those?
No. We should, but we just don't have the wherewithal.
This thing about carrying a handgun on your person, where you said you need a permit to do this, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I said I worked as a guard for Pinkerton, and I'm an armed guard. Yet, when I filled out the sheet, it said, "Do you have a permit to carry?" What is it? What do they say? Small.
Yeah. I don't. They don't use the word handgun. I know that, but.
And so I said no. So do I have to get a permit to carry the handgun on the job, or do they have a permit for all of their employees? Because I don't have a permit to carry it, yet I do carry it. It was issued to me.
That's a good question, and I can only answer it in this way.
Are they at fault or am I?
No, ordinarily what I've seen, a great many people have come down from various agencies and get a permit individually. Now there may be some like Pinkerton, which is a prestigious security group, no question about it. They may have some way in which they once they hire a man, they're blanketed. I'm not sure.
This is one.
But there's a lot of fly-by-nights, small little units, which I know don't enjoy any such privileges. Now, perhaps Pinkerton does.
Now, I think one thing that possibly the way it's set up is you're permitted to carry your handgun while you're on duty during those hours, because like we're not allowed to take the weapon home with us or anything like this. It stays at headquarters, so it's just during your duty hours. So maybe this is how the permit.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd ask someone though. But I know if you carried it home, I was going to say if you took it in your car, you'd have to have a permit.
Yeah. Well, what are the requirements for having a permit to have one in your car or on your person? And what are the requirements for a concealed weapon?
Just a good reason.
What would they consider a good reason?
A reason that you carry a large amount of money, or your life has been endangered, or your life or limb is endangered, or you are a special agent of some sort or another.
Do you have to show them and someone give them some kind of...
That you're not a felon, that you're a responsible person, that you're not a drug user, or a chronic alcoholic, this sort of thing.
Well, then you don't have to really show them anything. Like, say on such and such a day somebody shot at you, and every day.
No. But the chances of getting a permit, see, this is the reason we have been critical of the mechanics used now to get a gun. We don't think the law has been written properly. By we, I mean Mayor Stenvig and Police Administration, others, not the Rifle Association, by the way. But anyhow, it's rather ridiculous because, first of all, it should be a state law if you're going to have a law. Because when you're traveling through Minneapolis, you're in violation, but when you hit Bloomington, let's say, for instance, or any other suburb that doesn't have a law, then you're not in violation. Or if you can't buy a gun here, you can go out to Golden Valley and buy all you want.
This permit
I was
thing,
just wondering, because it seemed kind of ridiculous to me to have any kind of permit, the necessity of any permit at all, if they're not going to be careful about who they're issued to.
Well, they're careful. They're careful.
If I can just walk in and get a permit.
No. You have to show some reason other than the fact that you would have to show that your life has been threatened. You just can't say it's been threatened, or that you are a businessman. You do carry money.
I mean, how can you prove you got shot at?
You can't. You
like,
can't.
if you're driving in your car and you know somebody's looking for you, you know.
Well, you're going to have some reason. And the city clerk then examines it, and then our license division examines it. But we've turned down guns to people that we know are thieves, and their past history shows them to be burglars, yet nothing's on their record. Of course, my argument for that is that if I'm a thief and I'm going to kill you, I'm not going to kill you with a gun I got registered anyhow.
Well, that would be where having, if you owned any firearms, especially handguns, that anybody who owned any of them would be to his benefit to have them registered, wouldn't it? In case
Yes.
they were at one time stolen from him, and of course they were used in a burglary afterwards. And if it was known that they were stolen or something, you'd have something to look for.
Well, personally, I feel that all handguns, either owned or purchased, should be registered, which is not the opinion of a great many people.
But not rifles?
Hmm?
Not rifles?
Well, you're speaking of handguns, but particularly because they can be carried kind of surreptitiously, and they can be used. And these are the guns usually used in commissions of crimes. Very seldom. Maybe a sawed-off shotgun, of course, is already covered under federal statutes, and their possession is illegal. But if any gun, really, I could care less. If I'm a hunter, I could care less if I had 20 guns and they were all registered. This argument about when the Russians get here and look at that, they know who we are. When the Russians get here and look in those files, if it's the Russians, we're in trouble.
If the Russians get here, we're in trouble.
That's what I mean. So whether or not we got our names in a file is not going to be much of a deterrent at that time.
What is your view on these? It's
I was in a paper a while ago. There was an article on what I might call weekend cops. They volunteer their services to go and aid in like looking for drownings or draggings or auto accidents, things like this. Is this to help the police department or the amateurs? Or?
No, everybody should. Anybody, an amateur, if he sees something that he feels should be reported, he should report it. He should get involved. But other cities have, you might say, ride-along policemen, auxiliary policemen. And I can't speak on the subject because we never had them here. But I know how I'd feel if I were an officer and had an auxiliary policeman. I'd feel uncomfortable. In that if something really came tight, would this guy say, well, wait a minute. I'm not getting paid for this, you know, and who is he accountable to then? So fire me, you know.
You suppose you could mention something about the ride-along program in Minneapolis and who can go and on what units you can go? I mean, yeah, whether you can go just on the precinct, just with the precinct policeman, or with the tactical squad, or with the narcotics squad, or moral squad, or whatever.
Well, first of all, yeah, we expanded the ride-along program last year. Before, we felt it was maybe for the benefit of, for lack of a better thing, we used to call it kind of the Babbitts Incorporated. The people who really didn't care about police work and really didn't care about anything, but except they liked to ride along out of curiosity. And we weren't getting anything out of it. So then we decided to let any and all ride. Black man, white man, Indian, anti-police, pro-police, long hair, short hair, high school students with permission of their parents. And this is when we felt we really got some value out of it. And they can ride along with the TAC squad. They can ride along with our uniform squads. They can walk along usually with the moral squad if they wish. But it isn't that exciting. In the narcotics unit, I don't think so, because usually these people are moving in. I don't even know what they're doing.
Yeah. They're more or less undercover.
That's right. I don't even recognize some of them from day to day.
Mod squad.
But some of them got beards and, you know, and what have you, and I don't know the guy. He has dirty clothes, and they see him again, and they so they do operate in a different sphere. So
I was curious as to this because I thought perhaps, you know, one might have to have a reason, like say as a sociology major and studying crime and delinquency, and you know, you're going to do a paper on this, and you'd like to go along on the program to add
that's
something.
a reason. It's a valid. You don't have to. You just want to say, I want to see how the cops operate, quote unquote, and you can go. And we have a evaluation sheet which we request that they fill out. And you'd be surprised some of the people what they put down there, going into that squad car, figuring that all the policeman does out there is look for somebody hit in the head. When they get back, they say, I wouldn't have taken the abuse he took, or words to this effect. No, we welcome it, and as a matter of fact, we're filled up pretty well throughout the year.
How long would you have to wait if you wanted to?
The only fellow that can tell you that is Captain Lindberger, the community relations. It isn't that long. What I mean is we don't have a big waiting list, but the officers, this is not compulsory. It's strictly voluntary on the officer's part. And I'd say 90% of the officers volunteer to take a ride along under certain restrictions. Now, if he gets in a tight bind, he'll have to get out of the car for that moment. He didn't want to take you to some situation where you're going to get shot or hurt.
It's a sporadic type of deal. You're not responsible for the person anymore.
No, you sign a waiver. But ordinarily, if like there's a big fight or something, they let the man ride along until they get within a half a block, and then they let him off. If he wants to walk down, that's his business. But
how about park board police? Like,
I don't know. We have no jurisdiction over the park police
that's
whatsoever.
what I was wondering. Like, they don't have anything with Minneapolis.
None
City
whatsoever.
Because I've seen them working together. I mean, a lot of times.
Well, they will respond as an officer, you know, to a call, perhaps. But we have nothing to do. We have no jurisdiction over them. We
Who's
have no
in charge of
responsibility.
the Park Board Police? Then? The Park Board Commission?
Well, yeah, Mr. Rui ultimately, but they have a captain. I think it's Captain Kearns now, who is responsible for their duties.
Well, how thorough is their jurisdiction over the park?
That's that's your jurisdiction.
They're-
All parks
you
and
mean-
parkways.
The Minneapolis police have no jurisdiction over there?
Oh, we can go in,
Yeah.
but we don't unless we have to because
They can't. They don't have any jurisdiction on the streets then.
well, they can make an arrest. They have what they have is